And not many people know this, but CR7 has been blighted by a chronic knee injury since 2014. As a result of this issue, the Portuguese goal-scoring machine has seen his stats drop and his style change completely. Nevertheless, it hasn't prevented him from collecting accolade after accolade. Join us as we discuss how Ronaldo negotiated the injury and how he modified his style of play to stay at the top of world football. CR7 scored at a rate unseen before him at the Bernabeu. 450 in 438 matches to be precise. You don't have to be Einstein to figure out that's more than one goal per game. One of his most prolific campaigns came in the 2013-2014 season, one in which he'd accrue 51 goals and 17 assists in just 47 games, and capped off by a Champions League crown, the long-awaited La Decima. Stats that are all the more staggering considering that at the start of 2014, the Portuguese star was diagnosed with a chronic knee issue that could have put an end to his career. Get your notebooks out because we're going to be talking about all things medicine. That injury was tendinitis, one caused by a particularly nasty knock. At 29 years old and at the peak of his powers, CR7 was condemned to a period on the sidelines. Tendinitis causes swelling of the tendon and results in intense pain. The only way to manage it is an extensive period of inaction. Rafael Nadal, himself a Real Madrid fan, took an 8-month break to treat his condition, but it was out of the question for CR7 to sit idle for that amount of time. He wanted to win the Champions League and travel to Brazil for the impending World Cup. Each sprint would aggravate his knee even further. The pain was excruciating, and it would force CR7 to reassess. He'd work on it for 6 hours a day, and that's on top of his regular workload. What a beast! He'd go on to score the most goals in a single Champions League campaign, but he'd experience less success on the international scene, with Portugal being dumped out during the World Cup group stages. He'd later admit that if faced with the same scenario, he'd choose rest and recuperation. With his longevity at stake, Real's number 7 had to adapt his style. It would be unfathomable to rely on the same explosivity which was so key to his game, but his changes worked to perfection. We compared his stats from that famous 2013-14 season with the following one, and the change is staggering. Cristiano scored even more, 61, but in much different ways. The reduced number of dribbles and strikes from distance were remarkable. He'd go from 9 goals following dribbles to 2. His number of direct free kicks would drop from 5 to 2. And his entire goal tally from outside the box would fall by 33%. But there was another surprise in store, his number of headed goals. He went from 5 to an incredible 18. CR7 quickly understood he'd have to deviate from those dribbling days at Man United and refrain from shooting from range. Instead, he'd rely on his aerial ability. These modifications helped him lift a further 3 Champions League trophies in the preceding years. But just what could have been had he not been inflicted with such a curtailing injury? In the seasons immediately after, his number of shots per game would fall by 15%, his number of dribbles by 40%, and free kicks by almost 60%. In contrast, Messi would see those same stats increase tenfold. The legendary forward's work ethic is unrivaled, but without this injury, he could have been even more prolific. In any case, these stylistic tweaks brought unparalleled success. After his stratospheric Saudi deal, Cristiano & Co. are living a life of luxury. Check out our video, in which we look at his new lifestyle.